Alrighty, let's get started. So, thank you everybody for coming. I appreciate it. Hopefully today will be entertaining for you and also educational. As usual, please feel free to post your questions whenever you think of them. If it's within the flow of the conversation, I will definitely answer them. Otherwise, I'll wait till later. Um, there's a lot of you in here, so I expect a lot of questions. Today, we're going to be talking about understanding your business, ways to grow it, and ways to track it. This all is the result of a very large survey effort we made to talk to over 60 computer repair shops, MSPs, hybrid models, about what was working for them, what wasn't, and ways that they felt they could improve. And what I'm going to do today is show you guys the result of that. So give me 1 second here and I will drag this PowerPoint that has some of the results in it over. Alrighty. So, the first thing I want to talk to you about is one way to think about your business. I usually like to start with this. Now, I'm sure you guys all run your own businesses. You're entrepreneurs. So a lot of this stuff is going to be review, but this is a tool that was taught to me years ago that I love using, and I wanted to share with you guys because it is a very good way of taking your business, breaking it into different pieces, and allowing you to analyze it. And then we can get to the tracking part so you can understand what the different parts of your business that you need to track are. The first part's going to take about 10 minutes or so. You guys can ask questions during the whole thing. Then we'll talk about tracking your business. I put together a spreadsheet for you guys that I will share with you after the webinar, and you can use it, modify it, do whatever you want with it. But it allows you to have a starting point for tracking your business if you don't already have one. The last thing we're going to do is talk about marketing channels. It might seem like number 3 doesn't fit together really well with number 2, but the reason we're talking about 1 and 2 before we talk about 3 is because for these marketing channels, you have to be able to understand your business in order to pick which marketing channel to use and then be able to track that marketing channel so that you can make sure that you are either successful or failing at that marketing channel and then adjust accordingly from there. So that is the agenda for today. The first thing is understanding your business. So this is one of my favorite tools. It can be applied to any kind of business. We'll use an IT business in this case, but this is called the Business Model Canvas. You can get it for free if you just go on Google Images and search Business Model Canvas, or you can get it from businessmodelgeneration.com. Basically, the purpose of this canvas is to break your business into different parts. There are 3 parts in here that are really important. They're far more important than the other parts and kind of need to be thought about at the same time. You can't really fill them out one at a time. And those 3 things are the value propositions, the customer segments, and the revenue streams. So let's start with customer segments. So in our case, we're in the IT business. Customer segments might be residential users. It might be small businesses. It might be doctor's offices. The more specific you can get, the better. And for each of those customer segments, you're going to provide a value proposition. So that value proposition might be online backup or break-fix services or virus removal. Again, being specific is awesome because it allows you to differentiate from your competition and understand which value propositions better match up with different customer segments. It also, if you can get more specific, it helps you in your marketing. Because if I can say, I want to market my computer training service to elderly people in the city of Berkeley, California, then I can have a very specific marketing campaign because of that. But if you're not able to narrow it down to something more than just like, people aged 18 to 60, it's not really going to help you have a very specific marketing campaign, which we'll get to. You might be saying, well, I don't want a specific marketing campaign, but it actually is very helpful for getting your costs down and getting the best customers that you can get. So those are 2 things. The third thing that's really important here is the revenue streams. So revenue streams is how you make money, and that's pretty obvious, but I can offer value to somebody and not make any money from that. So you need to understand, first of all, how you're going to build people So is this a recurring revenue stream? Is this a one-time payment? How much is it for? Those kinds of things. And figuring out all of the different revenue streams that you can obtain from the value propositions you provide to each customer segment will allow you to kind of have a more complete picture of like, what is my business? How do I make money? And who do I make money from? From there, then we can have a bunch of other things that we can fill out. And these can kind of be filled out, you know, one after the other. There's not necessarily one that's more important. So we can go with customer relationships. So what this is what type of relationship does each customer segment expect you to have with them? For example, if you're providing managed services to the small business segment in your town, they'll probably expect you to be able to be available by phone during business hours if they experience downtime. Do you need to check in with them on a regular basis? Do you need to have a help desk? Those kinds of things. So what is the relationship like with your customer? That's another thing maybe to consider in the revenue streams part. Do you want to charge certain customers more for certain kinds of customer relationships? Okay, so let's move down here. Channels. So channels is really interesting because what you're talking about here is how do you deliver the value proposition to your customer segment? So if you're, for example, a completely remote shop, you might say, okay, my value proposition, or sorry, my channel is completely completely based on remote sessions. So that's maybe one of my channels for delivering value. The other thing to understand is what are your channels for obtaining customers? So you might say, well, I go to certain places and give talks. I put flyers around. I use Facebook advertising, AdWords advertising, those kinds of things. So understanding how you get the customer to understand what your value is so you can then provide it to them. So we'll go into channels a little more soon. And let's move on here. So key resources. So what are the resources that you need to be able to provide that value to the customer? That might be, I need remote session software. I need an RMM solution. I need computer repair tools. I need a storefront. I need a car, those kinds of things. And understanding what those are will allow you to understand what your cost structure is. So, you know, everything that costs you money, you want to put in here. And you can weigh your cost structure against your revenue streams and understand how profitable am I going to be and how many customers do I need in order to be profitable. So you can already see this, the way of laying this whole thing out is awesome. The last two things are key partners and key activities. So key partners might be you need a partnership with a vendor. Maybe you need to partner with you know, Dell or something like that in order to be able to get more jobs. Maybe they're one of your channels. Maybe you need to partner with an online backup solution in order to provide that value proposition to a customer segment. Key activities might be things like you need to go to local events, or you need to do accounting, or you need to check in with your techs once a day. So these are the activities that are crucial to running your business. Now, you can take all of these things. What I would recommend doing is you can print this out. They also have an iPad app, I think, but I would recommend printing this out on a big like poster board, taking some sticky notes and sticking it on each box and practicing kind of putting that together. The thing is, these boxes will change over time for you. They should be changing over time if your business is growing. So that's why we use stickies instead of just like, you know, filling it out with a pen. Because it's going to change, and it allows you to kind of brainstorm and talk about, okay, what if we did market to this customer segment? What value propositions could we provide to them? Oh, that doesn't fit. Take that sticky off. So I'd recommend kind of, you know, having this in your office. It allows you to focus on the different things you can do to change. You can say, okay, you can fill it out in a bunch of different ways. What is my business like now? What I want it to be like in 6 months, right? So you can kind of fill it out in the future as you imagine it. And it's just a really great way of organizing everything. So for me personally, when somebody tells me about their business, what I'm doing as they tell me that is in my head, I'm filling out these boxes. And that allows me to kind of separate the different things and know what questions to ask them so that I can understand their whole business model. So anyways, now that you understand this, let me see if there's any questions. Yes, we will have a recorded version of this. Yeah, so don't worry about that. It'll be sent out within 24 hours. So this is the business model canvas. I highly encourage you to check it out. I know it might seem a little bit silly to fill this out. You're like, I know my business, but it's a very good activity, I promise. And it doesn't take long. At most, it takes an hour. Okay, so now that you understand how to analyze your business, at least in one way, right? I mean, I'm sure there are others. One of the important things that I want to emphasize here is you have to set goals for your business, very discrete goals that are measurable. And when I say measurable, I mean grow your revenue is not a good goal. Grow your revenue by $2,000 though in a month, that's measurable. So that's an okay goal. But even that isn't really the best goal because you have to understand the things that contribute to raising your revenue. And really the best goals are the things that you can set to impact your revenue by increasing those. So for example, you might say, I want to sell 30 managed service contracts this month to residential people, right? And that will obviously increase your revenue, but it is a very actionable goal. So, and measurable. You can say, well, I got to 15, so I got 50% of the way there. Anyway, so you want to set goals that are measurable, and then you want to track it. And that's where a lot of people mess up because they go off their gut and they don't actually do the diligence and track their progress. So you have to have a good way of tracking your progress. An example of this might be people who send out mailers, right? And they send out these, physical mailers via post, and they don't have a way of knowing if people are contacting them because of the mailer or just because of like the phone book or something, or because they just found their website. So you have to be able to know how people are contacting you. So a way you might make that mailer measurable is give it a Google Voice number instead of your normal phone number. Now you know how many people called my Google Voice number. Oh, okay, that's how many people called me because of the mailer. So you have to find ways of being creative and making things measurable. So you have to, like I said, you have to track your goals. The problem is most people don't do that. And they know they don't do it, but they don't necessarily have the tools in place or the energy or the time to properly track those things. And we know when we're not doing things the way we want to do them if we had all the time in the world. So what we did at RepairTech is we surveyed 60 different shops, and we asked them various questions. What I want to do here on this slide is demonstrate to you that these principles pretty much apply to everybody. So of the 60 shops, most of them were hybrid, a little more than half. So they do break fix and managed services. And then we had some pure break fix, some pure MSP. So, kind of all over the board, but the majority of them are hybrid. So you're going to get kind of a mixed result in the data. And then we asked them what kind of customers they service. And the vast majority of them service residential and, SOHO and small business. And then, there's some trailing data here for healthcare and government and enterprise. But the majority are kind of the normal, like residential, SOHO, small business. So pretty applicable, I would say, to most people. The next thing we ask them is, what key performance indicators do you think are most important to your business? And these are some of the things that people said. Monthly recurring revenue, okay, that makes sense. Number of referrals per month, so that's like word of mouth basically. And so, that's good because word of mouth marketing gets you the best customers in my experience at least. Customer satisfaction ratings, yep, obviously if you provide a good product, people will come back. Percent of revenue per revenue stream. So that's an interesting one. That's saying like, well, I make this much, 10% of my revenue is from managed backup. 20% of my revenue is from this. So that's an interesting one. I like that. New customers per month, another good one. I think especially if you're in managed services and you're doing recurring billing, that is very important to know. Tickets per customer, it's important to know how much time and energy and therefore money you are spending on each customer. Gross revenue growth, I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Appointments per month, leads per month, those are kind of the same thing. And then average response time, how long it takes to get to the customer or how long it takes for you to respond. And then revenue per endpoint, obvious MSP metrics. So these are not the only metrics, but they're things to jog your mind and get you thinking about what the key performance indicators might be for your business. Again, all of the things, and I tell this to everybody, the thing that is important is to understand that there are going to be many successful businesses and people that can give you advice, and you have to figure out, you should listen, but then also figure out what is important for your business, because at the end of the day, you know your business best. So you can take a look at these things. Don't take them for granted. They don't necessarily apply to you, but they're good examples. So the other thing we asked people was, we asked these 60 IT businesses, how satisfied are you with the effort you put into tracking your business metrics? And I would say the results were abysmal. The average was 4.3 out of 10. So people are not satisfied with how they track their business. We thought that was very interesting. And so what we did was put together a kind of starting point spreadsheet that I'm going to give to you guys, and I'll show it to you right now. It basically is a starting point that allows you to see all of the different numbers in your business. And this is a fake business. These numbers are fake. I made them up, but they're, kind of realistic. So what we have here is a Google Doc, a Google spreadsheet. We have it organized in a certain way. Now, I expect you guys to modify this stuff. This is not going to work off the bat for your business, but it's kind of a good way to see some things from a high level. So we have a quarterly summary here. It allows you to see gross revenue from a couple different revenue streams, and we'll get into that. There's a revenue sheet here, and then total gross revenue. You can see cost of goods sold and customer acquisition costs, and then your margin on that, and then your operating expenses and operating income, and then your quarter over quarter difference. So this is organized by quarter, super high level, and then you can see your cash flow here, so cash in the bank basically. Then we break it down by month. One of the things that's interesting here is I like to know how many months of burn I have in the bank given my operating income. So you look at basically ending cash and you divide that by your operating expenses, right? So let's say that I got in a car accident or something, I can't operate my business anymore. How long can the business survive before it goes bankrupt? So ideally you want to have, most people say between 6 months and 18 months in the bank. Now, that's a lot for most businesses. I would say it is a very good idea to have 6 months of burn in the bank. Anyway, so then we break it down by revenue stream. So I put in everything I could, a bunch of different examples here. You'll have to put in your own. So we have, and you don't necessarily have to organize it this way, right? Like you could be more granular. Instead of saying break fix, you could say new PC setup and virus removal. Could be the second one, and whatever you want. The point is, this is just a starting point. So you basically per month put how much revenue and how much you had to pay for cost of goods sold there, and how many customers you got. So this will tell you the net revenue. If you go down here, it basically shows you the growth over time of each of the segments. You get some sanity checks, so you can see like, oh, what's my average revenue per customer for each of these revenue streams. So you can see here in this case, like the average revenue per customer in the last month here in January was $225 and break fix was $60. So if that's the case, we're willing to spend more money to get a managed service customer than we are to get a break fix customer. Like, let's say I spend $15 to get this break fix customer, right? Now I make 45 bucks. I can spend $120 to get a managed service customer and still make more profit. So that's why this is important, especially because managed services, now we're talking about recurring revenue here for in a lot of cases. Okay, marketing. This one is also interesting. This is really important. It's really important to track. Now, I put really general ways of kind of looking at these things. So you probably want to get more granular and customize it for different marketing channels. But, you basically want to understand how much am I paying per channel to get a customer, and, what's my total spend. You'll notice, like for Facebook marketing, for example, if you spend more than a certain amount, it doesn't actually get you any more customers. So you have to, and if you spend under a certain amount, you're highly unlikely to get a single customer. So you have to kind of track this stuff over time to understand, okay, what am I doing well? What am I not doing well? Is it time to get a new ad, for example? There's, a thing called ad fatigue. So these things are all worth tracking. I have one for incentivized referrals, and you have to find creative ways, like I said earlier, to track these things, right? And at the bottom, we have total spend. We have the number of new customers and the overall customer acquisition cost. Seeing the customer acquisition cost basically allows you to make decisions about which channel to put money into, especially if you can, have more information about the revenue streams and know, oh, well, if I do print ads, those are all going to go to businesses, and therefore those are managed service customers. And I know my managed service customers, like we saw before, are worth more. Okay, so expenses. This one's really straightforward. It's just your expenses. You know how to do this stuff. QuickBooks exports, this kind of thing. And I think it's just good to track because you can know where you can cut stuff and how much money you have in the bank, basically, in terms of burn. The next thing is key performance indicators. I just took all the things you guys said in the surveys that were important. You should put whatever you want here and just track it over time. And then projections. This is one thing I think most people don't have, and I put this together. It may or not apply to your business, but you can at least see how I did it. The stuff on the left is all assumptions, and basically says like, oh, if we start with 60 customers for break fix and every month we grow it by 20%, but it can't get to more than 100 because that's not reasonable in our area, then you can see what it looks like over time and what that means for revenue. And so we did that for all the different revenue streams. You can see the gross revenue growing, how much are we spending on marketing, and how much is the customer acquisition cost and whatnot, how are operating expenses changing because maybe we're increasing payroll over time, and what's the month-per-month difference in terms of operating income, and then you can see the amount of money in the bank, and we can choose a starting point. And this is just really helpful because it allows you to kind of, this stuff is made up, right? It's in your imagination to a certain extent, but if you can take historical data and base the future on historical real data, then at least you can get some idea for where you're going to be in 12 months and 6 months. And then you can say, that's not where I want to be. I want to be bigger than that. And then you can figure out how you're going to adjust in order to get there. So this is the spreadsheet we put together. Again, you're going to need to modify it. Okay. Any questions about anything we've covered so far? Oh, we have a question here. Using Google Voice is an option, but what if you already have one for another purpose? Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bunch of other solutions you can use. Off the top of my head, I can't remember them, but you don't have to use Google Voice. There are many different ways you can do it. And the whole point is really just to do an experiment. Like, you might have to invest a little bit, like having having an extra Vonage line for $5 or $10 a month or something so that you can have that extra phone number. And you're doing the experiment over the course of 2 months, so you're like, well, I'm going to burn $30 on the Vonage line, but at least I'll know how many people called me. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. Okay, so let's move on for a second. Here we have a couple things that I wanted to go over. These are just high-level strategies for marketing your business, things to keep in mind when you're implementing new marketing strategies. The first is measure your efforts. We just went over this in extensive detail. Essentially, you just need to make sure that you are able to say, was this a success or a failure based on data, not on your intuition. The second is be patient. If you send out a mailer, for example, I know I keep coming back to that example, but it's a good classic marketing example. It can take up to 6 months for you to truly realize the ROI on those mailers because people leave them around. So you have to be patient and understand that you're not going to just get calls like the next day necessarily. It might take some time to fine-tune your marketing, and it might take time for people to get in touch with you. So you have to be patient. The third thing is you have to be willing to fail. I know I said experiment, but what I mean is fail. You have to be willing to say, I'm going to put $200 into AdWords and I'm going to lose that money in order to experiment and see if you might lose that money, but you might also find a way to make $400 by putting in $200. So you have to be willing. You're never going to get to the I get a double my return or triple my return or 10 times my return if you're not willing to lose the money in the first place. So you have to be willing to experiment and understand that you might lose your money, and that's okay. And I know that's a really hard thing for people to get over, but you got to do it. The fourth thing is you have to define what success means. So in most cases, what I would recommend is figuring out what your target customer acquisition cost is. So going back to this spreadsheet, if we go to the marketing section, the revenue section, I say, okay, managed services is $225 per customer. So what am I willing to, or a break fix is a better example because it's not recurring. So $60 is what I make when I do a computer repair on average. What am I willing to spend in order to acquire $60? Well, you probably don't want to spend more than like 30% of that on your marketing. So I don't know, it's been too long since I've been in college. So I'm not going to do the math there, but 30% of $60, and you can take that and figure out what you think is your maximum number you're willing to spend. And success might be, well, I got really close to that number. Now it's time to fine tune, right? Because on your first attempt, you're probably not going to get to the most efficient way of doing that marketing channel. So, I guess that's not on here. Maybe it's part of be patient, but if I say the most I'm willing to spend on a customer is $15 and I get to $25, then that's not really necessarily a failure. It just means, can I fine tune this now to get it down to 15? So keep that in mind. Yes, you guys will. I see a question here. Yes, there will be a spreadsheet. There will be a spreadsheet that I share with you. So that link is actually right here. It's just bit.ly/IT spreadsheet. Okay. Ricky, I see your question. I promise you I will get to it at the end since it's a bit out of the scope. Okay. So the other thing we asked these 60 IT companies was, which of the following marketing strategies have given you a positive ROI when you've attempted them? So it's important to understand what that question actually means. This doesn't mean which of these didn't work for you. It doesn't mean which of these would work for you. It just means you've already tried this one. Did it work? So you have to take that into account because, for example, content marketing, which is at the bottom here at 3 out of 60, it's possible that many of these IT businesses just haven't tried content marketing. So that's worth understanding. So the number one, which was a bit surprising to me, was Facebook marketing. We do really good at RepairTech with Facebook marketing. And I hear a lot of people be super critical about it. But to me, it's kind of a no-brainer in a lot of ways, even though it's getting slightly more expensive. So it's nice to know that a lot of people are getting a positive ROI with it. The other thing is email marketing. I mean, I think that's pretty straightforward. Car magnets and street signs were really interesting to me because the ROI you have to get is like, oh, well, I spent $30 on this car magnet. So all you have to do is get one job over the next like 10 years in order for that to be a positive ROI. So I thought that was interesting because it's kind of just a fixed cost, one-time purchase, like why wouldn't you do it kind of thing. Going to local events makes a lot of sense, especially if you're in managed services. Because if you get one customer out of that, that's some recurring money, and the lifetime value there could be pretty great, especially if you can sign somebody up for like a 1-year contract. Investing in SEO and organic search was another interesting one to me. I know a lot of people are really skeptical about SEO and SEO consultants and all of that stuff, and rightfully so. There are a lot of people that have no idea what they're talking about or overcharge you or whatever. Luckily, there are a lot of really simple tools you can use to ascertain the things, basically to understand your current SEO situation and what can be improved. And it's really, as long as you're on like WordPress or Squarespace or something like that, it's quite easy to improve your SEO as long as you know what to improve. So giving flyers or cards to local stores is always cool. You can do that at pretty low cost. You just go and tell the shop, hey, I'll give you a free computer repair over the next 6 months if your computer breaks, if you put these flyers around. And that basically kind of makes it essentially free for you. I mean, yeah, you have to do a computer repair, but AdWords is like I would say a bit more complicated than Facebook marketing in some ways. It's definitely more, it changes more. So I'm not surprised that people are more successful with Facebook. Print ads and all of those things, you can see the rest of them. It's kind of a diminishing return there. So the one that I was a bit surprised with was partnerships with competitors. I would have thought that was a bit more lucrative for people. It worked for me really well in the past when I was running a computer repair shop. Yes, Robert points out that car magnets and other signs like that are a business tax write-off. So yeah, and you might hate WordPress, Robert, but if you know what you're doing with it, it can work really well. The nice thing is that all of those frameworks can be, whether it's WordPress or Joomla or whatever, can be really helpful in the sense that there is a lot of infrastructure and software built around it that you can use very easily. However, they also make you lazy, so people don't implement them correctly. So anyway, Ricky wanted to point out that if you want to just kind of start from level 60 instead of 0, you can check out techsitebuilder.com, which is obviously run by your friendly neighborhood computer guy, and that is kind of a WordPress setup that is set up for you, specifically for computer repair shops. So you can definitely check that out. It's pretty awesome. I've checked it out myself. Okay, so now that you guys can see a couple of the different strategies that people have used, I think it's worth noting that what we're doing right now and have been doing for a long time actually is we've been taking these results and then building a really big, like I would call it a gigantic ebook with resources attached to it, but it's a bunch of different things that you can use to help implement these things. So for example, Facebook marketing, we're putting together like a bunch of example ads that you can use and criteria that we've found to work. so that you don't have to, on the next page, you'll see, be held back by a lack of time or not comfortable doing sales or don't have designs or text for ads. We can't help you with the cash part, unfortunately. If I could print money, then I guess I would share it with you, but I can't. So we are attempting to eliminate the rest of these things by giving you the resources you need to implement the most effective of these marketing channels. So, or the ones we feel are most technically challenging is another way to put it. The Facebook marketing one, the email marketing one, Google AdWords, I think we're giving you guys some flyers too. So we're putting together a package of that. It's not ready yet, but we're definitely working on that because we want you guys to be successful. And if these are the things that are holding you back, that is, well, frankly, not a good enough excuse. So we're going to try to give you the resources you need in order to do that, because we recognize that you are super busy running your business. Okay, so people on average rated themselves at a 4 in terms of how satisfied they were with their marketing efforts. So there's just another reason why we're doing this, because there's so much untapped potential there. Okay, so we kind of ran through everything. There are a bunch of other things that I was hoping to cover here, but I just don't think that it can be covered in an hour, and I knew you'd have a ton of questions. So what I'm going to do here is allow you guys to say, I want you to dive deeper into one of these things, and I will gladly do that. I'll let you guys kind of steer the conversation. So if you want to talk about the spreadsheet or a particular marketing channel, or you want to ask me something about RepairTech, I will be happy to do that. So we got a question from Robert here. When can we expect to get that ebook? You know, it's hard to say. We just launched the new TechWaru version 2 beta yesterday, I believe. Maybe the day before yesterday. So that's taken up in the past a lot of time. We worked on that for about 8 months to give you guys a brand new TechWaru. We've also got a brand new Tech USB coming out that's UEFI bootable and got a bunch of other nifty things in it. And then we've got a lot of stuff going on with Kabuto as well. So that takes up a lot of the extra time. So I've kind of been working on this ebook thing on the side, like at night. So I don't really know exactly when it's going to happen. I would say about 2/3 of the chapters are already written, and Max has been working. Our CMO has been working on designs for ads and all that stuff, and I think he's gotten pretty far with that. So I don't know. I would hope within another month, but don't hold me to it. Question from Chris. How do we sign up for the new TechWaru? There's a really big beta list that we have compiled. If you're on the beta list, you should already know that. And we are going to let 30 new people in every single day from that beta list to test the new TechWaru. And if you're not on that list, then go ahead and email us at support@repairtechsolutions.com, and we'll get you on the list. Actually, don't email support@repairtechsolutions.com. I'll put an email address in the chat box, and you can email that address and ask to be put on the list. Yes, Ricky, it is Connor. Robert says, what if you don't currently use TechWaru? Can you still get on the list? Well, you have to have a TechSuite account. I guess you could sign up for another trial, but you have to have an account. That's like really actually, like from a technical perspective, the only way for us to get you the new TechWaru. So you have to have an account one way or another. So you could get on a 14-day trial, I guess. Let's see here. I think we got some more questions. Question from Ricky. How did RepairTech obtain initial funding capital for marketing like we're discussing here? Personally, I refuse to spend my own money when I can. It's hard for single techs to bank enough money while keeping all business expenses paid. I hate loans too. Any tips for people like me? That is a really good question. So there's two parts in there, I guess. One part, the latter, is how can computer repair and IT businesses get some funding for marketing? The second part, I guess, was asking about how RepairTech did it. And I would say the way that RepairTech did it probably doesn't apply to most IT businesses. We got some seed funding from angel investors, basically. Um, we had been bootstrapping for a really long time, but eventually we got a little bit of funding, and that allowed us to do actual marketing as opposed to spending $50 a month on Facebook or whatever and $50 on AdWords, which doesn't get you much. So we got some funding there, and as we've grown, we've made more money, and that has allowed us to reinvest into the business. That being said, the IT businesses are frankly not, what's the right word? I guess sexy enough for most angel investors. There are some angel groups that invest in managed service providers, but they're looking, for you to get really big. If you're like a mom and pop computer repair shop, that's probably not realistic unless you want to start a franchise or something. So I would say try to invest in like the cheapest or most cost-effective marketing channels. Get that car magnet, get a street sign, do the flyers. That's very affordable. You don't have to do anything fancy. You can just print out a bunch of flyers. And then just commit yourself to saying like all the extra revenue that's going in here, I'm going to save so that I can do marketing experiments. In the long run, like you're never going to be able to grow more via those marketing channels unless you find a way to do those experiments. In addition to that, there are a couple other things. Your web host probably has coupons for like $100 off AdWords, $100 credit on Facebook marketing. So those things are actually all over the place. So if you use like Bluehost or Namecheap or whatever, most of those, or GoDaddy, like most of those you get coupons just for having an account. So I would check that out. That's a good way to kind of get your foot in the door. Robert says, seriously about advertising, is it worth to spend money on Facebook to promote your business? I would say it depends on how you do it. There are a bunch of ways to waste money on Facebook advertising. That's why I think people have bad experiences with it. The way that I would recommend doing it for a computer repair business is to market they have a bunch of different types of campaigns on there, and let me see if I have a picture of this. Yeah, here we go. So, if you go to your Facebook manager, there's a bunch of different like ways you can do the marketing, and one of the ways you can do it is send people to your website, which is not what most people click. Most people try to promote their business page on Facebook, which is a horrible waste of money. No like residential or business client actually cares about their MSP's Facebook page. Like nobody cares about that. So what you want to do is send people to your website to generate new leads, and therefore they'll call you, right? So what you want to do is do the send people to your website link. And then you can pick, this is in most cases, obviously there are some like, multinational IT businesses, but for most people you want to do it within a radius of your business, right? So it depends on how populated your area is, how far out you want your radius to be. Because if you live in a place where there's a lot of competition, you probably want, and a lot of population, you probably want to keep it a little bit closer to you. So in our case, if we had a shop in San Jose, I probably wouldn't want to go more than 10 miles away just because there's so many computer repair shops. And if I'm in Mountain View as a potential customer, I'm not going to drive to San Jose when I can drive to another computer repair shop in Mountain View. So that being said, if I was in a more rural area, I could expand it to 20 miles and it'll probably be fine, because how many computer repair shops are there, right? Even if there's 3 or 4 or something like that, then I could probably get away with it, because my marketing will be better. And in addition to that, you want to narrow your demographic down. This comes back to the business model canvas. You want to narrow your demographic down to only be the perfect customers. And so, in this case, we're marketing to college students because we're in a college town, and we're only going to do desktop feed. If you do the other ones, you're probably going to waste your money unless you've got it super fine-tuned. So all of it really comes, getting the positive ROI really comes down to narrowing your target down until like, this is the perfect customer. And the result of that is you might get slightly less people seeing the ad, but they're going to be the ideal candidate. So I would say, like, that's the pitfall most people make, is they don't do it the right way. Okay, so Justin says, do you know any SEO apps worth using? Most are around $5 or so. I don't know what kind of SEO apps you're talking about, but there's some SEO things I would highly recommend. Let me see if I can find them. Yeah, sure. Here, let me share my screen with you guys. So the ones that I would recommend, they're all free. SEMrush is free. It allows you to basically analyze your traffic versus your competitors' traffic and understand, like, the keywords that are getting people to come to your site. Now, for all of these things I'm about to mention, they're not exact. These are like estimates, and so you have to kind of take them with a slight grain of salt, but they give you a really good idea. You can see how many backlinks you're getting, how much organic search you're getting, where they're coming from in terms of, country or whatnot. Get listed is good. It makes sure that you have signed up for all the accounts you can to get SEO from them. So like Yellow Pages and Yelp and Google Maps and all of those things. In addition to that, WooRank.com is great. It basically analyzes your website and looks to see if you can improve anything from a technical perspective. So that might be like, oh, how's your HTML organized? What words are you using on your site? Are there any how does it look on mobile? Because Google takes all of those things into account. How fast is your page load speed? So it will give you suggestions on things you can improve and give you kind of a score, right? Marketing Grader, which I believe is made by, who's it made by? It's that email marketing company, I forget. Anyway, Marketing Grader is free, and it allows you to, it's kind of similar to the one we just went over, WooRank, but it's more technical. It also checks out your social media presence and blogging and keywords and stuff like that. And then, the king of all of those things is Google Analytics. So if Google Analytics can be incredibly technical, but, most of you guys are technical. So you should be able to dive into it and kind of get an idea of, like, oh, where's my traffic coming from? Can I somehow increase traffic from this place? What are people doing on my website? How long are they spending on my website? Those kinds of things. Because you can get all the traffic you want from Facebook, and if they're not actually calling you on your website because they can't find your phone number, and it's just not going to matter. So does that help out? Is that answering your question? Okay, so awesome. All right, so we got another question here. Can you go into cold calling a little bit? Yeah, I mean, cold calling is an interesting thing. Most people don't like cold calling. I wouldn't recommend doing it. When I say most people don't like, I mean most businesses don't like to do cold calling. I think it's interesting because I wouldn't recommend doing it with residential people, but businesses are very used to it. And when you call somebody that's local, it's not really the same thing, right? Like it's not going to be as annoying to them or, anything like that unless they're having a bad day or something. So you can call somebody and say, hey, we're also in San Jose. I just wanted to call you guys because I was driving by your place and I saw and I was wondering that if you guys needed any IT services. Like, do you have somebody that helps you out with your computers when they're broken, or, installs antivirus stuff on your computers or anything like that? And they're either going to say yes or no, but they're not gonna sue you. So if you get that job, then number one, you're providing value to them, and number two, you're getting revenue. So that's awesome. The thing is, you want to be able to track those calls. You want to say like, oh, they didn't pick up. What percentage of people pick up when it's 11 a.m. versus 2 p.m., right? So you also want to make it efficient to call people. So the thing that I would recommend doing is using a CRM to kind of manage all of that, manage your leads. There's a really good cheap one. It's not, I guess it's not that cheap, but it depends on the volume you're doing. There's one called Pipedrive. There's another one called Base CRM. There's another one called, there's obviously Salesforce, but that's overkill for most people at this point, unless you have like a team of cold callers. We just started looking at something called Tout App. There's a bunch of different solutions out there, and they're probably all perfectly fine. The cool thing about a lot of them is that you can like call within the online dashboard, so you don't actually have to dial or anything like that, and it keeps track of your response rates, and you can record the calls so that you can train people. It's cool. As far as how do you get phone numbers and stuff, that's not actually that complicated. It depends how manual you want to be with it. You can go and pay somebody to go scrape Yelp for you. There are a lot of people that will do that for very little money. But it's not actually that hard to just kind of go through Yelp and look at certain businesses. If you say, I want to service dentist offices, it's not that hard to just search dentist office San Jose on Yelp and just call them. All their phone numbers are there. So I would recommend, there's just so many ways to do it. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but I'm happy to elaborate if you want. And yes, I understand, Ricky, that you'd rather stick a fork in your eye than do cold calling. Yes, I completely get it. We don't do any cold calling on our end. All we do is call customers that have signed up already. So, people that are already using the software or have signed up for an account, and we just answer their questions and stuff. And that's kind of like the extent of what we do. We've tried cold calling before, and it's not, we don't think it will work that well for us. But it's different for different people. If I was running an MSP, I might be cold calling. Who knows? Because the ROI is really good there, right? Like you get one MSP job, and it's, the ROI is great. So Eric says Pipedrive is pretty good. We use it, and you can customize it monthly, $12.50. Yeah, Pipedrive is pretty nice and simple. It has the basic feature set you need, and it has the ability to expand that feature set if you want to pay more. Sean says, just sharing my personal successful marketing ROI, hands down, yard signs in all caps. Sean likes to use all caps. I strategically put some nice, large print, easy to read signs, 18 by 24 inches near major intersections. Daily, I get calls saying, I saw your sign, I need help. So there you go. Sean, I have a question for you about that. Do you, when you put those yard signs down, are you paying somebody rent to have those there, or was it like a one-time, you just put them there and like, who knows? So I'm curious if that was a one-time investment for you or if you have to pay rent. Sean says, nope, I risk and place. Some stick, some disappear. Okay, well, there you go. So Sean puts down signs in places and some of them disappear, but it pays. So there you go. You can try that. Robert asks, what's your take on door direct mail through the USPS? You know, I'm going to be honest with you. I've considered using it many times, and I've never made the leap. So I don't feel comfortable saying it works or it doesn't work because we haven't personally done it. I'm very tempted to try it, but haven't yet. So if somebody has, just feel free to post, and I'll let everybody know. Let's see here. We got a bunch of other questions. I just got to find them. Robert says, will you put the information when it's available on TB? I don't know what you mean by TB, but I'm going to, yeah, when the package, the marketing package that I mentioned before is available, you'll, I think we'll send out an email about it. So don't worry about that. You'll know about it. It'll probably also be on our website. Let's see. Josh says, are there any updates on the new version of TechWaru? Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, we released the beta of it. It's super awesome. I'm excited to get more feedback on it. So yeah, if you're not already on the beta list, feel free to email Connor. I put his email address in the message box there, and you can get on the list. And we're letting 30 people in per day. So I think there's like around 300 shops on the list right now. Yeah. Oh, Technibble. Yeah, TN. That makes sense. Yeah, I don't know if it'll be on a Technibble post, but it'll definitely be sent out. So if you got an email to this webinar, you'll get an email about the marketing package when it's ready. So, any other questions, guys? I'm happy to stay a little longer and hang out. Robert says, will Kabuto ever get remote support? Yeah, in one way or another. So, you know, I think on our end, what we are going to do is we're going to make it so we're calling it fast syncing. So right now, Kabuto syncs once every 6 hours. We're going to make it so that we can essentially send Kabuto a signal from our dashboard whenever we want to tell it to do stuff. So we can kind of like have a button on your end on the dashboard that says like sync, and then it'll tell Kabuto to sync, as opposed to just waiting for the Windows app to send data up to the dashboard. The end result of that feature is that we can put a button on your dashboard that says remote into this computer, and it'll run your remote session executable whenever you want, as opposed to having to wait for the client to click the button, right? So at the very least, we're going to add that in by the end of the year. So you can use with that any remote session solution you want, right? Now, then there's the separate question of, okay, fine, so now we can remote into computers unattended as long as they're on. However, are you going to build your own remote session solution so that we can buy it from you instead of someone else? To that, I don't have the answer yet. I would very much like to have a solution that we have either built ourselves or that we've partnered with someone else to provide to you at a very with a lot of ease, right? Like all of the things in Kabuto right now, you just click enable and it's done. We want it to be just as easy to do that. So we have already talked to some vendors and looked into how we might do it ourselves. And I would say we haven't finalized what we want to do with that, but we certainly want to make it so you can easily remote into computers by the end of the year. Josh says, the business model canvas download button is down. Do you have a direct link you can share? I think if you go to businessmodelgeneration.com and you go to Canvas, I mean, you might be right. It might be down. Oh, yeah, forget about that. You can just go to Google Images and search business model canvas, and there are a bajillion of them. The best one actually, I think, is like one of these ones where it has the questions in the box. That one's great because it like tells you what to ask yourself. So like for the like channels one, it like says, oh, here's the things that you want to do, and it has like phases in it. So that one's awesome. Yeah, but they're all over the place. There's also like other ones. They have new ones for the youngins. What's it called? It's like this one, the value proposition canvas. So this one is actually like it's like diving super deep into just this box and this box. So it's kind of a different way of looking at it, and so that's kind of cool. Let's see here. Robert says, will you make so it will work in safe mode too and restart into safe mode with networking and reconnect? I'm assuming you mean the remote session solution. Is that correct? Okay. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I have never even thought about that. We've been thinking about stuff on a way higher level than like the technical little details. I would very much hope that it would work in safe mode. But given the fact that we haven't really picked a solution or a technology, it's really hard for me to say what it will be able to support. We do have some minimum specs that we have ascertained people want, such as file transfer, and it should be able to be encrypted, so secure. It should be plug and play essentially, so that you can just click a button and remote into the computer. We don't want it to be a Windows client to Windows client solution. That's another kind of like one of our personal things about it. So just as an example, we don't want to do it the way that a lot of these, like I think TeamViewer and Instant House Call do it. I could be wrong about that, but essentially where the technician has something they install on their computer, and then the client also has something they install on the computer, and you access the client via the technician installation. We don't want to do it that way. We want to use HTML5. So you just use the Kabuto Online dashboard to remote into the computer, and you don't need to download anything on your technician computer, right? So that way it's just all within the dashboard. It's just super easy. We handle all the connecting stuff, and there's no effort involved. Francis asks, is it that you will soon have a backup system, or is it not in your plans? I'm currently talking to like 4 different backup providers, trying to figure out what backup is a funny industry where there is so much, how do I put this? Like, it's a commodity, right? Like, there's just not much differentiation in the industry, and it's hard to say like, oh, this solution is so much better than that solution, right? Like, maybe if you get to like SQL servers or like, Linux and things like that, like, yes, there's differentiation there. But most of these solutions are perfectly fine for backing up files. So we're trying to figure out, okay, what's the best business relationship we can have with these people, not from like a revenue share or whatever perspective, but like which company is best positioned to help techs, right? So for example, we don't really want to use somebody that markets to consumers. Who has a product that kind of fits the scheme of what Kabuto is like. So we have to make sure things are going to be plug and play. We have to make sure that it's not very hard to configure. We have to make sure that it has a good user experience. So those are kind of the things that we're thinking about. You guys, to be honest, are all over the place with what you like. So I'm convinced that like pretty much all these solutions are fine because there's 10 votes for Cloudberry and 10 votes for Carbonite and 10 votes for Backblaze, and there's just like, it's everywhere. So I think you guys like all kinds of things, and I'm like, yes, we take that list into account for sure. But at this point, it's more about like, what is the company like? that provides this software, because the software itself is not that differentiated. So yes, it's in the works. When will it happen? I don't know. We're trying to get everything kind of prepared and make sure that we're making the best decision for you guys. And picking that vendor, we're kind of taking our time. I would like to start working on that after the remote session stuff and the fast syncing stuff. So we'll see. We're working on Windows patch management at the moment. Let's see. Michael says, any time scale on reporting from Kabuto. Generated reports we can send to the customer of what was done that month. Yeah, I think that there's a couple features we would like to add before we feel reports are kind of like necessary. I think we certainly could have them now, but we want to add scripting first so that like there's something to actually put in the reports. So for example, you know, we have this new tech suite, right? And eventually you want the ability to run things on computers. So we'll probably eventually integrate tech suite into Kabuto and enable you to run tech suite things on computers. Tech suite already generates reports, so you'll be able to get reports from that. In addition to that, I think that we'll have reporting. It's just that right now, like, what would you say? Like, oh, well, we patched these apps and we checked these triggers, but it's not like all that much that's actionable. Now, if you were cleaning up the computer on a regular basis and scanning for malware on a regular basis, there would just be a lot more to talk about in that report. So we want to make sure that if we're going to provide you reports, there's a tremendous amount of value that you can depict to your customer. So that will come. Yeah. Robert says, offering backup through Kabuto and having remote session would be a godsend, as it would be an all-in-one solution and we could generate more revenue through using one system. Yeah, I completely agree. You know, the industry is moving in such a way as to kind of consolidate. And you're seeing that with like SolarWinds buying Enable and Logic Now and Kaseya having their PSA and you know, LabTech being acquired by ConnectWise and then Screen Connect being acquired by LabTech. And so, you know, there's a lot of consolidation happening, and I think that one of the main things it says is that customers or techs want to be able to kind of go to one place for all their things, and we're very aware of that. And I think that it will kind of become a strategy long term, and I think, you know, that's an example of why we're trying to have a remote session solution we can provide, because we keep hearing you guys complain about how you don't want to pay other people. And, you know, if you want to pay us, we want to enable you to do so. So there you go. Terrence says, what about making a download of Kabuto on a web page so a customer can install themselves, or maybe TechWaru? Is anyone trying it? Yeah, actually people are doing that. Let me show you one thing that will allow you. We don't have any like actual web pages that you can do that with, but what we do have is if you go into your settings panel here, you'll notice there are two different installers, right? This is probably a review to a lot of people, but we have the technician installer and the customer-facing installer. The customer-facing installer only includes, like, the technician installer allows you to configure everything. So you can choose whether you want antivirus or monitoring or whatever. Customer-facing installer is a little different. What it does is it only asks for contact information. So you can give that to a customer and say, hey, can you please go install this, and now I'll have access to your computer. So that's what this URL is for. So you can make some widget on your website, and people are doing this right now, where they send out an email blast or all of that stuff, an email blast, or like they have a widget on their website, and then people can download this and run it. It does the exact same thing as the normal installer. It just uses the default settings and asks them for their contact info. So Terrence asks, would the customer-facing installer capture all computer hardware? Yeah, it's exactly the same. So it's just going to make a device here, and you know, you'll see the same info. So it's just the same. It's literally the same installer, but like advanced and simple mode. That's like all it is. Any other questions, guys? What about TechWaru? Good question. What about TechWaru? So with TechWaru, well, what would you want? Tim, yes, the webinar is being recorded and it'll be sent out via email to you within 24 hours. Terrence, what do you want to do with TechWaru in that case? Allow the customer to do a self-diagnostic. I would say it's not really built to do that yet. That's something that we would want to enable you to do via the Kabuto Online dashboard once TechSuite is like integrated into Kabuto. That way you can say, hey, go ahead and install Kabuto with the customer-facing installer, and then you can run the diagnostic via the online dashboard super easily. We may also, one of the other things we may want to do is after Kabuto is done installing, it will run a self-check for you right when it's done and show you the results of all the triggers so you can see them. So that is kind of like the self-diagnostic thing. Yeah, because the way that Kabuto works is like you do get kind of a unique URL, but you have to be logged in order to use it. So you can't really give somebody a URL. Robert says, you have a free and growth plan for Kabuto. Why don't you offer a plan for, say, 100 devices or something along those lines? Let's see here. Go to... So what Robert's talking about is the pricing for Kabuto, which can be found here. Oops. Okay. We found here. Well, we have a lot of plans actually. It's just that the minimum one is 250 devices. If you want more than that, the real issue is that you're paying for custom branding. The thing is with we don't really have it. Once people get serious about using Kabuto, they usually don't even get to 50 devices before they want custom branding. So I would say that's kind of the issue. And the custom branding is what makes that $119 a year. I mean, I think we maybe could explore. We're always open to kind of exploring new things with the pricing model. But we haven't really had many people bring that up. What do you mean by payment plans, Robert? While you're typing that, I'm going to answer another question from Terrence. He says, when will we be able to offer services to Mac users? Good question. I don't have a date for you. We have a lot of other things we want to build for Windows before we support Mac. We think that Mac is a growing market and would very much like to support it, but I just don't have a timeline because there are like 5 or 6 humongous features that we want to build first. I would say it's kind of a ways down the road, but it's something that we definitely want to do. Chromebooks. Chromebooks. It's the first time anybody's ever asked for that. I have no idea. I think Chromebook is based on some distribution of Linux. I don't know which Linux distribution it is. Really hard for me to say. Oh, Red Hat, Robert says. Chances are we won't support Chromebook just because Linux is a pain. And if we were going to support Linux, it wouldn't be Red Hat. We would probably support Ubuntu and Debian, so that people who had servers could use Kabuto. And I would say Ubuntu and Debian are probably the most popular servers. I mean, that being said, Red Hat isn't all that different from those from a operating system perspective. So, it's always possible, but certainly not at the top of the list, given that Red Hat is a very, very small percentage of the market. Robert says splitting the 119 into, monthly payments or something. Yeah, I think it's possible we will split this into a monthly payment. We kind of considered that at the very beginning, and since then it hasn't come up too many times. Like, customers haven't really asked for it, so we haven't really had enough pressure to consider it again. Terrence says, best partners you can recommend for cloud backup. Yeah, I would say that I'm in favor of ones that are doing marketing through the channel rather than doing both residential and not residential, direct to consumer and via the channel. So the ones that I like the most are Cloudberry, Gilware. I've heard good things about Backblaze. I've heard some good things about Carbonite, but I've also heard a lot of bad stories about Carbonite. So, and I haven't used them personally in a long time, so it's hard for me to say. But yeah, I really like Cloudberry because Cloudberry, their model is different. They sell you the software as a license and then allow you to use whatever storage you want. So you don't actually have to pay them for storage. You can use your Google Drive. You can use AWS or Rackspace or whatever you want for the actual storage and be in control of that storage. You just pay them for a license of the software, which I think is really interesting. It does require you to maybe do a little bit more work in terms of like setting up the storage, but it's really not all that much work. Yeah, you can. Yeah, Robert says you can use Amazon AC3. You have a bunch of different options for how you want to do your backup. So I really like Cloudberry. One of the things is they're super configurable. I think far more configurable than most of the other solutions I've ever seen. So it might take a minute for you to figure out exactly how you want things to be configured, as opposed to something like a Mozy or a CrashPlan or something like that. So it's maybe a little less plug and play, but it is a really good solution and it's worth looking into. So that's probably my favorite at the moment is Cloudberry, but like I said, there's not that much different between all of these solutions. So try a couple of them out, see what you like. Robert says, but will your backup solution be brandable? Most likely, yes. That's kind of one of the benefits of us partnering with somebody that does things through the channel as opposed to direct to consumer, is that they're kind of used to that thing. So we're going to push for it to be brandable. We allow you to brand Kabuto. Like, why wouldn't you be able to brand your backup solution? You're the one selling it. So that would be the ideal. Robert says, when can we meet you guys at RepairTech? I don't know. We live in San Jose. If you're ever in California, give us a call. We're happy to get some beer with you or something. We also have people all throughout California. So yeah, we probably will. We missed CompTIA ChannelCon this year, but we'll probably be going next year as well. And yeah, I don't know how you can meet us. That's a funny question. Terrence says, are you going to CES? Probably not. That would be very fun for us, I think, on a personal level, but it probably wouldn't do anything for our business. And going to conferences is really expensive, for vendors at least. If you're an individual, you pay for a plane ticket and a ticket, which isn't which isn't bad. But if we wanted a booth or something, then it would be it's really expensive. You'd be surprised. Robert says we should do a meetup. Yeah, we would love to do a meetup. We've kind of considered doing that for a while. Yeah, we've talked to Repair Shopper about doing one on the West Coast or one on the East Coast. We've also talked to Corey from Instant House Call about like trying to coordinate something like that. Yeah, I think that would be really fun. So we'll consider it. Right now, I think we're like too overloaded. There's like too much stuff going on that we're trying to. We're a relatively small team, so we have to hustle a lot to maintain 2 products and whatever. Yeah, yes, Robert, we could use some more employees. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, would love to do a meetup. Yeah, no problem, Terrence. Go. Yes, Terrence says he's got to go save the world one computer at a time. Yeah, go ahead. I should probably get back to work too. Thank you guys for attending. I appreciate it. We'll be sending out a recording soon. As always, let us know if you have any questions or anything. You have our phone number on our website, and you can email us at support@repairtechsolutions.com. And have a great day. Thanks, everyone.